Hi friends, it's Brittany at Ink and Papyrus and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited you're here with me today because I am breaking in this botanical journal that I created recently out of a seed catalog, and we're going to be working on some really beautiful botanical layouts. And yes, this cover was made out of a seed catalog. If you would like to see the actual process of making this journal, in addition to some other awesome ideas for things that you can create out of leftover seed catalogs, I will link those videos above and in the description box. Check them out. I don't know about you guys, but when I start on a journal for the very first time, I often get paralysis by analysis. I find the best way to combat that is number one, I never start on page one. I always flip past it. I don't know why, but it's too much pressure. I don't know. Do you guys do the same thing? And number two, I always reach into my embellishment stash and find some related pieces that I can use to build my layouts upon. So I just went through a few different bags of embellishments, including some paper buttons and some seed packets I made earlier, and some pre-stamped ephemera and some other pieces. And I just find that it helps so much more when you're not starting from nothing, you're starting from something. And you'll see all it took on one of these page layouts, all it took was just a stamped piece of ephemera, and it seemed like the entire layout created itself, and I'm thrilled with it. And I don't think it's a layout I would have thought to make aside from this fairy and these plant things sort of screaming at me to make something out of it, and I ended up with a gorgeous layout. Sometimes you just need a little spark of inspiration, and I feel that these pre-made embellishments do that for me. And by the way, I don't know who you are or who suggested taking a huge bag of pre-stamped ephemera to keep ready at your desk, but it has been one of the greatest journaling hacks. If you don't do this, guys, you should. It is such a great spark of inspiration for starting different page layouts. And I find that one of the things that I hate dragging out are my collection of stamps, especially if I'm looking for something specific. I hate going through the entire drawer of stamps and then going through the drawer of ink trying to find the color of ink I want. I'm so much more likely to actually use my stamps if they are already stamped. Um, and this bag of pre-stamped ephemera will last you forever. And I love that I have a stamp for every kind of theme and style of journal that I may be working on. And I have that stamped image in many, many different colors. It just works. Do this with your stamped images and for stamped words. They are perfect to slap on any kind of embellishment you're working on. I highly suggest this hack. Next, I grabbed some pre-made journaling cards, and guys, I think this is my favorite way. These are my favorite journaling cards. They are index cards that I just inked up with a jelly plate. I threw down a bunch of inks and paints and stamps and a whole lot of different things just to make some background patterns, and then I cut up a bunch of scraps like stamp material and digital images and um, um, like focal points of scrapbook paper. And I just cut them out and kind of arranged them on the index card, and they are gorgeous. I love these so much. They have a really nice vintage feel to them. So if you've never done this, I highly encourage it. It's such a fun project. And again, I have really been looking for a lot of projects lately where I can bust through scraps. Okay, enough with the yapping. Let's get to our first layout. Again, I didn't actually plan any of these layouts. I used the embellishments and the things I had on my desk to inspire me to create, and sometimes that's the best way to do it. It was actually the watercolor bird that I had drawn and painted that inspired me to do this layout. However, you'll see at the end, that watercolor bird does not go anywhere on the page. But I had a bird stamp, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But first things first, when you're kind of stuck and aren't sure where to start, put down some of that brown paper packaging. Just start layering. That's exactly what I did with this brown paper packaging and this little watercolor leaf I put on top. start overlapping your papers and again, like layering them, and the page just kind of builds upon itself sometimes. I do love the way the white contrasts with the brown paper packaging, but decided it was a little too much, a little too busy, and the everything I had put down was kind of cloistered in the one area. So I just wanted to give it a little bit of balance. Next, you'll see I threw some stencils on my desk. Another great way when you're not sure where to start, just start stenciling some things. And I found this cute little bird stencil, and I go over the stencil with modeling paste. Why modeling paste? Well, I love it. It just adds some really nice texture. And for the very first time ever, I decide to paint over it. I wasn't sure. I don't think I've ever tried to paint over modeling paste with watercolor. Make sure it dries completely, but I found that it actually absorbs a lot of like it holds the pigment and it looked pretty spectacular. If I would have just been stenciling over the watercolor, or if I would have just been stenciling over the brown paper packaging, I probably would have left it as is because the white contrast really, really nice against the brown, but since it was on that green, it didn't show up really well. And I go around the birds with a marker just to give them a little pizzazz, and that's when I kind of realized that I would need to do something more. And again, if you haven't painted over modeling paste, it looks pretty fantastic. You'll see here I stenciled some music notes. I thought kind of tied things together really well. Like there's something about birds and chirping that reminds me of music. And so I just thought it was a great way to, again, build another layer onto the page. I kind of shifted my stenciling over to the other page as well. And I find that you don't, your pages can be, you can have something completely different and unrelated on the other page, but a lot of times I like to add harmony and balance. And one of the ways I do that is by overlapping sort of a theme, just like I did with the birds and the music notes. I'm not really sure at this point what I'm going to do with the page next to it, but I know it's probably going to be related to music, something, and it doesn't have to do anything with birds necessarily. It could be something completely unrelated, but that's how I like to kind of um, blend things together and harmonize them, if that makes sense. Speaking of blending and harmonizing things, now I have this brown paper packaging, these birds sitting on it, but it doesn't really look like it goes together. It just, things look randomly placed to me. So I decided to go ahead and extend a stem, a tree stem as if the birds are sitting on it, and start building, just painting some little flowers around them to make it look like they're in their own little pretty cove. And I find that once I did that, it looked like the birds were meant to be there. And um, once the modeling paste was dry and I painted over it, it really kind of started to bring everything to life. I have to say, painting is something I'm still no good at and I'm kind of uncomfortable with, but as I do it more, I can really appreciate all the ways that can be used to really liven up your journal pages. I've been trying to challenge myself to use it more, and I think I'm going to end up doing a lot more painting in this botanical journal. And just remember that if you don't like it, you can always cover it up. You can just layer paper on top of it. So there really is no pressure. So just try. That's the best any of us can do. And I think once you get a little bit more comfortable and do it more often, you will have the confidence to start consistently painting in your journals. And that's the journey I'm on now as well. And if you're not comfortable and it still feels really awkward to you, do use it like I have. I'm just drawing very basic plant stems, and I even cheated by stenciling something and just painting directly over top of it. Things like that. It's really no pressure. You're just adding ink to something that's already to shapes that have already been drawn. Start really simple. Once I'm finished painting, I realized that brown paper packaging still looks really empty. and it sort of just looks like this page needs some words. And I didn't know what I wanted to write about. I'm trying to kind of keep this botanical themed as opposed to, I guess you can still journal about your day-to-day life. But I really wanted to keep this focused on botanical elements. And so when I'm not sure what to write and I want to write about a specific theme, oftentimes I'll get on Google and just look up song lyrics or facts about plants or facts about anything, lists of things, and I will copy them down. This way, your journals can be informative, and again, you can get comfortable writing in your journals even if you feel like you have nothing to write about. And so when I typed in songs about birds, the Billie Eilish song Birds of a Feather, I believe it's called, came up. And the song lyrics were really pretty and I felt like would fit really well on this page. So I just wrote a couple of the choruses down and I love how this layout came together. Again, I had no intention of creating a layout with birds and plants and a song about birds. I have no idea from start to finish how this layout came together, but it did. It's beautiful and it was all inspired by a bird embellishment that I didn't even use on the page. Go figure, right? So I wasn't sure initially what I wanted to do with this page, but I realized, okay, so I have some music washi tape on my desk, and I'm not sure that this goes with the birds and the music, but I had this fairy pre-stamped fairy and that mushroom, the fairy house, and those plant little garlands, and I realized I had to create a fairy layout. And you'll see in a second, I have these beautiful watercolor paper buttons I made, and I thought they fit into the magic fairy theme absolutely perfectly. And in case you're wondering, I absolutely hated fussy cutting those little leaf garland things, but it wasn't going to work to just put down a blocky stamped piece on the background. I actually needed the shape of the leaves, so I loosely cut around them. Didn't painstakingly make sure they were just, all the green space was cut out, but I, I guess I did an okay job of fussy cutting, but let's face it, I'm glad that part's over with. Again, I still contend this layout came together by complete accident, but this may be one of my absolute favorite layouts. These aren't pieces that I would have thought to put together. I wasn't even going to use the washi tape in this layout, but it was sitting on my desk like, a million other things. And I don't know I think it was because I saw that green butterfly on the bird theme layout, and it's obviously, I think it came with the same stamp set, the same ink, and I thought, okay, I guess I could kind of join these. So I'm all about, as you see with the music and the birds, and I'm all about kind of trying to blend layouts together when the pages are next to each other and harmonize them and find a way to sort of connect them, even if you wouldn't naturally kind of connect them in your brain, even if one doesn't seem to have anything to do with the other, and whether that's stenciling like I did and allowing it to come off the page, or tying the themes together, or maybe you pick a color or a word that kind of relates to both. And I'm probably overthinking this. This is kind of just how my brain works. But my point was that I never would have thought to combine these elements together. And I didn't plan on doing a fairy layout. I think it was just the mix of the stamped ephemera and the watercolor buttons and the green and everything that really drew me into creating this beautiful layout. And I'm really proud of myself because at the end I break out the glitter. And it's something that I'm kind of scared of. I have all this glitter laying around that I don't really use because I feel like it's very childish, but I think it really elevated this layout and brought it to life. Again, I don't know what inspired me to pull out the sequins and glitter and get fancy with it, but I did. And I love how I think The idea came from how I situated the fairy on the music notes. It looks like she's almost standing on a ledge and could be dropping something down from them, like sprinkling her magic fairy dust. And so I thought, well, let's get a line of glue going from her to kind of around the house and the plants and just make it look like she's dropping some magical fairy dust on everything. So that's exactly what I did. I couldn't think of a better way to do this. I guess you could glue the sequin or um, hand sew the sequins to the page, but I don't got time for that. I don't know about you guys. So I just took my wet white glue and made a line down around the music notes and then scattered, some big blobs around the plants and just started dumping the sequins on top. I know it's a little scary, but you kind of just have to commit to it. Initially, I was trying to kind of contain it in the area of where the glue was. That's not going to happen. The best you can do is just redirect it a little bit with the tweezers, like I did, and kind of try and contain it to the area of the glue. And then for a really easy cleanup, just drop a flexible piece of paper underneath, like I did, just that brown cardstock, and shake it loose, and then that way you can easily pour it back into the jar. And it actually, honestly, it was, if you do it that way, it kind of contains the mess. And I think I may just need to be utilizing my sequins and my glitter in my layouts more often. And for our third layout, well, let's put it like this. The first two weren't exactly planned, but the third is definitely haphazard, and I think it is one of the most fun. So I started out with a book page, a nice cream colored book page, and it just wasn't doing it for me though. There was no color, there was no oomph behind it, and I had my watercolors on my desk, so I thought, well, let's take this for a spin and just start bleeding in some colors. And actually, the color pattern that I chose was inspired by that cute little boy with the butterfly wings behind him. And I knew I wanted to utilize that as the focal point for the page. So I took complementing colors and just like let them bleed together around on the page, and I ended up carrying them over to the next page as well. Because yes, I decided to blend these two layouts together just like I had my previous two. And when all else fails and things aren't going the way you'd like, just splatter some paint on it. It makes everything better and look more cohesive. I was thinking I wanted to put the boy with the butterfly wings on that book page up against that kind of gray background that I painted over. And so I needed a focal point for the left, the large white page, but I wanted to, pick a focal point I thought that would work with both. And so I picked some wildflowers, kind of like wild and free. And like any good crafter, I cleaned up my stencil afterwards, and the best way to clean up your stencils is to spray some water over it and pick up a print. And so that's exactly what I did with these white bags. They're gorgeous. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I just started another project off to the side without even thinking about it. I did feel like he was blending a little bit too much in the background, and so again, I pulled out my brown paper packaging to back him with, and I felt like it provided a lot more contrast and helped him pop off the page. Once I got that situated, I decided I wanted something between the brown paper packaging and him, and I felt like the texture was missing. In the first layout, I used a stencil to put modeling paste on the page and gave the page texture that way and made it pop. The second fairy layout I used sequins, aka magic fairy dust, to give the page texture. And on the third layout, I decided to give the page texture by taking some of that old embroidery floss and threads that I had left over and just simply putting them down on the page and backing the butterfly to all the thread. And I actually really like the way this looked. That little thread drawer has become my junk drawer, and oh, believe me, boy, do I have a lot of junk drawers. But I found this old watercolor palette that I hadn't touched, and I actually really love these neutral colors. I think these colors would look great in this journal. So this was a really happy find, and I can't wait to put these colors in my paint palette. For those of you wondering, I believe I got it off AliExpress, so I probably only paid a couple of bucks for this, but the purples and the blues and the greens are going to look perfect to paint some more botanical themed elements in this journal. I had forgotten about this pre-stamped word that says create, and I thought, wow, this is perfect. So, like I did in my other layouts, I thought how perfect to blend the pages together and kind of harmonize them by going around the word. I had left some extra white space and I decided to go around and sew it, and that way I have a sewn element on each of the pages side by side. Maybe it's corny and it doesn't necessarily fit because the watercolor butterfly is very whimsical and the butterfly next to it of the butterfly wings on the boy is like a very serious image, but the colors were working for me. I thought it made it look like a complete layout, and I felt like it needed more of a focal point, but I didn't want to just put the word create by itself. So I decided to just go with it and put the butterfly next to the word create. I just find it funny and ironic because I'm sitting here telling you how I balance things and create harmony, and it's really funny how this all worked out because I feel like it never works out like this for me. There's always this like pull like to do more or feeling like it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, or just feeling like things are a little bit mismatched. And I think I just got into the zone, and achieved like a flow state and somehow harmonized these pages perfectly. Now you may see these and think, wow, it looks like a third grader put those together, but to me it doesn't matter because I feel like I wanted to create something botanical and something inspiring, and that's exactly what I did today. And it makes me so excited to go on this journey to create the rest of this journal. In general, I try not to have too much in the way of verbiage together. I feel like it gets busy. The original message kind of gets lost. It maybe takes away from what it could have been, but I felt like the word create, and then if nothing changed, there would be no butterflies. I felt like, first of all, it ties the butterfly theme together perfectly. It ties the two pages together. And for me, it's kind of symbolic of the journey we go on as creators. It gives us permission. It's basically saying, there will be growing pains, it's okay to evolve and develop along the way. Your style yesterday might not be what it is tomorrow, might not be what it is next week, next year. You may not even recognize yourself, but that's okay. It's a journey. We're all on it together. And sometimes the process is more important than the final product. Does that make any sense? Another way to link the pages together is just to use similar elements. The same paint that I used to paint the wildflower leaves, I used to add some little pointy pieces to this little boy's gold crown. I thought it was pretty cute. So for our last and final layout, I was just looking to do something really fun, and I want to do this and prove to you guys that just because you're doing something botanical themed doesn't mean you have to only put plants and flowers in your journal. I guess a flower is a plant, never mind. I guess you don't just have to put plants in your journal. And this layout proves this. This is a paper doll with that I created from a magazine image, and I made her a skirt. It's a floral themed skirt, but there are so many other components to this, including some paper buttons, which I did start to glue down, by the way, and then realized I wanted to put some embroidery floss inside it to actually make it look like a paper button. That's why I ripped them back off and put the embroidery floss through and then glued them back down to the page. She's also holding this watercolor umbrella I made. Guys, if you don't know how I made this, I made these adorable watercolor embellishments. I made uh, I made umbrellas and watercolor mason jars and some watercolor flowers. Check it out. The video was so much fun, and I came away with a ton of embellishments to use in spring and floral themed journals. Uh, Tons of bright bold colors. So if you are interested, check those out. I will link those above and in the description box. But my point to this is use your imagination. Just because you're making a certain theme of journal doesn't mean that you have to completely enclose yourself off. It doesn't mean you can't add other elements, and just think out of the box. And because sometimes people are like, well, how would I make just one theme of journal? Like, I would run out of ideas really quickly. No, you would actually be surprised. If you use your imagination, you can fill an entire journal and with just one theme or one, let's say you make a red themed journal or an ocean themed journal or a botanical journal like I have here. If you use your imagination, you can fill that sucker up. You will run out of page room before you run out of ideas. I promise you. Try it. You'll love it. Well, as you can see, we are sticking with the harmonizing and balance linking our pages theme today. Boy, that was a mouthful. I didn't know how I was going to do this, except for I thought, well, she has a watercolor umbrella. Let's take another watercolor element, add it to the other page, and I found this really, really pretty flower. The peach and the lavender in this flower reminded me of this seed packet, this watercolor seed packet I made that I painted. And it has some flowers and something I think about the flower that I was painting, the Georgia peach pie. So I hand wrote some details. These are meant to be whimsical. They're not actual seed packets. But I thought that fit really well with the flowers. So I just made that into a flip up by gluing the little envelope portion of the seed packet on the other side and then added some stenciling. I had a stencil next to me that said lavender, and I thought, well, that like ties the color combination together here, and I love this. And now I just have to figure out something really cute to put in the seed packet envelope. I don't know, do you guys have any ideas? So friends, I hope you found these layout ideas inspiring. If you did and want to see more of Ink and Papyrus, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I can't wait to see you the next time.